Hello, YouTube. Daniel chapter 2, verse 31. This is Daniel, and God gave Nebuchadnezzar a dream, and he wanted to know what it was. And none of the magicians or astrologers or anybody could tell him the dream or the interpretation. But Daniel, who was a man of God, God gave him the dream and the interpretation so he could tell Nebuchadnezzar the interpretation of it. So I'm going to read this so you'll know what the dream was. My king, as you were watching, a colossal statue appeared. That statue, tall and dazzling, was standing in front of you, and its appearance was terrifying. The head of the statue was pure gold. Its chest and arms were silver. Its stomach and thighs were bronze. Its legs were iron, and its feet were partly iron and partly fired clay. All right. Now, if you look at this statue and you read the book of Daniel, you'll see that this statue is a symbol of the world empires. It starts with the gold head, which was Babylon. The arms of silver is the Medes and Persians. The stomach and the thighs were bronze, that is the Greeks of Alexander the Great. And then the iron legs that end up with iron and clay is the last world empire, which started with the Romans and will end with this world empire we see coming together in a globalism right now. Now, have you ever wondered why God gave this picture of a statue made out of metal? Now, if you've looked at my other videos, I've talked about how God never intended man to have high technology at all. God never intended us to make things out of metal. He never intended us to live that way. He told Adam and Eve to go out and be farmers. And that's what he intended humans to do. And if you also study the Old Testament, God would not let Israel use metal tools when they built an altar for God at all, especially iron. Okay? Now, why is this? Okay, if you study... this is a really good book, really interesting book. If you look up metals, okay, people that worked in metals when it first started out were called a blacksmith. And I know most people have heard of that. Blacksmith is somebody that works on horseshoes and stuff, but they were people that worked in metal. And they were looked down on. It says they were on one hand often partially excluded from society since their trade appeared to have links with the underworld, with hell, and was on this account judged dangerous. Okay, now if you look at what's happening with this, they take metal out of mines. Okay, and a mine, trying to see, yeah, it goes down towards hell. Okay, and that's where you get the iron from, and then you use fire to smelt it. Okay. On the other hand, they often played the opposite role of a major role in society, their trades underpinning initiatory cults such as those of the Kabbarai in ancient Greece and of Chinese and African secret societies. And it said that these metals showed kinship between the forge with the fires and the underworld. Okay, so you have fires of hell and the underworld, and so people looked at it as from the occult. Plus, if you look in Genesis chapter 6, you see where there were fallen angels that came to the earth, married women. And if you have ever read the book of Enoch, which was one of the most popular books Christians read back in the first century, it talks about how fallen angels taught man how to use metals and how to use herbs, and that's where we get drugs from, and how to do astrology and a lot of stuff they weren't supposed to do, and incantations and junk. Well, this metalworking came from that same place, was the knowledge of fallen angels is where it came from. Okay, so you have Nebuchadnezzar's dream and the statue representing humans, and the statue is made out of different metals, which shows that each kingdom is made by demonic teachings and demonic sources. Okay, if you study, keep on reading, and you look at alchemy. Okay, alchemy has a lot to do with metals. Okay, yin and yang. See, this is crude. I drew this myself, but pretty much everybody's seen this yin and yang thing. Came from China, I think, mainly. And it's a symbol of male and female. It's a symbol of good and evil. It's a symbol of balance of good and evil, and that good and evil is equal and all this junk. Well, the gold is said to be pure yang, which shows it's demonic because it comes from this occult philosophy, while the element metal is of the essence of yin and corresponds to the west, to autumn, and to the color white. Now listen to this. It says, melt down the universe and refashion it is a phrase used in the ritual of a secret society. Melt down the universe and refashion it. Okay, so God shows this symbol of a world empire. The only way they could have shaped these world empires, this statue as a symbol, is by melting down these metals. And then they form it into a world empire. All these world empires occurred because of war, through violence, and through dictatorship, and forcing people to be in these world empires. And notice what I read. Melt down the universe and refashion it is a phrase used in the ritual of secret society. The 7 metals of alchemy. I'm going to read them in the order of the most important, and they correspond to planets and things like this. Gold corresponds to the sun. Silver corresponds to the moon. Mercury corresponds to the planet Mercury. Copper corresponds to Venus. Iron corresponds to Mars, who is the god of war. And if you notice, the last world empire on that statue is made of iron, which corresponds to the god of war. And you're going to have Armageddon in the last world empire. Then you have tin, which corresponds to Jupiter. And Jupiter and Zeus is the same false god. Then lead, okay, which corresponds to Saturn. And Saturn is the 6th planet, so lead corresponds to the number 6. But my point is, these metals are the metals of alchemy. You have gold, silver, and iron. 3 of them are in this statue. Okay, the tin is close to the bronze, because bronze, I think, is a mixture of copper and tin, I'm pretty sure. And copper and tin are both in this alchemy. And so all 4 of them are part of the 7 metals of alchemy. Okay? Now, I'm trying to explain this the best I can. My other videos, I showed how the United States of America is based on these false gods. And you want the best example of alchemy is a dollar bill. You take something worthless and make it worth something. That is a piece of paper. That's all it is. It is worthless. But they made it worth something. Most money now is just a blip on a computer. It's absolutely worthless. Okay? If you keep reading and study this, okay, let me read this. It talks about the Jewish prohibition of metal in their altars and of metal tools in the construction of Solomon's temple. This ban was directed especially against iron, since as a doctrine of Yuga, the ages of gold, silver, bronze, and iron, shows the symbols of metal are set in descending hierarchical order, the gradual hardening of the 4 ages of the world. In the end times, if you read the New Testament, it says in the end times people will be hateful and truth breakers and just evil. And they'll get more and more evil as they come together. And the metals of the statue is the same way. Gold is the softest metal, and it starts out. Then you have the silver and the bronze, and then the iron, and the iron is hard, which shows the hardening of man's heart as he turns away from God. Then one of the things about melting down the universe and refashioning it, right now, our whole society in America is collapsing. It's melting down in a symbol, figure of speech. And it's so that they can refashion it. Because just like the phoenix bird, and the phoenix bird, its color was, in most of the myth stories, was purple and red, which corresponds to the god of the Phoenicians, and which the Whore of Revelation, chapter 17, she was clothed in purple and red. The phoenix bird, the myth is that this bird would build a nest and then set it on fire, commit suicide, and then out of the smoke would come a more powerful, more beautiful phoenix bird. This phoenix bird would take the ashes from the old phoenix bird and fly to Egypt and offer it to the sun god in Egypt. And here you have the Egyptian pyramid and the sun god behind it with all-seeing eye of the occult. And the offering to that sun god of the phoenix bird after it is destroyed by fire. And here you have metals. All these metals of these world empires in this symbolism had to be melted down and then shaped into these empires. In order to get a world empire, for the Antichrist system to rule, the American empire has to melt down and change. And if you look in Revelation chapter 17, it talks about that Mystery Babylon the Great will be burnt with fire. So it tells you, Revelation 17, 18, and 19 tells the whole story about Mystery Babylon the Great, describes her destruction, and describes that she'll be burnt with fire. And the United States of America is Mystery Babylon the Great. Okay. The great work of alchemists proceeds through fire and destruction to the reintegration of a higher level. The alchemy, that's what's happening. Our whole society is based on alchemy because we take things that are worthless out of the ground and turn it into cars and things like that. That is a form of alchemy. Another form of alchemy is for the United States to collapse financially or any other way to where it's worthless and you have chaos, and then they reshape it into the world empires. And that's what the symbolism of the different metals, gold, silver, bronze, and iron, show. That's why God had them to be different metals. Anyway, I hope this made sense, and I hope I was clear. I know what I'm trying to say, and I hope I said it well. God bless you.